So, guys, before we begin, so I would like to welcome you all on this beautiful evening, and for sparing out time from your busy schedule to have a session on introduction to object-oriented JavaScript and getting started with TypeScript. So, just to set some ground rules for this session, let's try to make this session as interactive as we can. Let's try to ask enormous number of questions. The questions could vary from the topic, from the technology, and it could vary from the framework level, and could also vary in terms of career orientation, which would be a great discussion if it's needed. And to set some ground rules, just whenever I ask a question, it would be great if you guys could say yes or no very quickly. That would help me to pace up the session, or see how fast we can go along with it, right? So just to begin, so now what we'll be covering in the session, we'll be covering the TypeScript, the data types, the interfaces available, the concept of inheritance, classes, and your questions. Now, we are all aware about about object-oriented programming. How many of we are aware about what is OOPS? Guys, what is OOPS? How many of you are aware? Guys, as I said, let's try to make it as interactive as we can. Just try to give as many options, or as many recommendations, or chat as possible. It would be of great help to me. So Mike, Naveen, Marwa, Saurabh, and Sushant, let's try to indulge into it. Okay, so moving ahead, before I move ahead, let me give you a small introduction about myself, guys. I'm Aditya. I'm an MTech graduate from BITS Pilani, and I'm having 6 years of experience in application development and over 8 years in teaching application development for on various platforms. So in my past experience overall, like in the past 2 years, I have been indulged into full stack development. So I hope all of you are aware that what is full stack, right? So when I talk about full stack, so my experience is into React as well as Angular. So that puts me into a good picture to judge which framework is available, or which framework is most suited, right? So are you all ready to start this journey for the application development? What say, guys? Are you all ready? Guys, follow the ground rules. Let's have a quick yes or no, just in case, if you want to. Okay. Okay, so how many of you are clear with the concept of object-oriented programming? Like, what is object-oriented programming? What is it? Anyone? Guys, what is object-oriented programming? Any one of you? Okay, does it mean that no one of you is aware about it? Okay, I'll quickly explain it to you then. So let us open the whiteboard and start learning about it. So when we were talking about our frameworks, like let's understand like this. So till there was a time when when my whole code was written in the form of functions. We all are aware about this, right? So I have functions written which perform a specific task, right? Like say, imagine I have to have a user login mechanism. So I would have a function to login, a function to sign up, a function for forget password, a function to say retrieve user ID. Correct, guys? Does it make sense? Guys, does it make sense, everyone? Now, with this interface in place, it was working good for us. It was working fantastic, but it was modular in nature. I could reuse this functionality wherever I wanted, but it was lacking in something, that was data transition or too much of knowledge. So now, so what is data transition? Sorry for the spelling, for the typo. Now, what is transition? Imagine, like over here now, once the user signs up, so there are multiple processes to be followed, right? So the first is, the email is triggered, then, like a database entry is done, and a hell lot of goes inside this entire concept. So keeping all these things in mind, there was something which need to be get hold of. So that is where the concept of or a new paradigm was designed. That paradigm was named as object-oriented programming. So now, what is object-oriented programming? So now, this was function-oriented programming. This is object-oriented programming. So my approach or my focus is now majorly on object. So here, what is the object, guys? Guys, let's try to be interactive as much as we can. What is an object over here? Guys, are we there? Everyone. So what's an object here? Okay, let me give you an example. Can I say that a user is an object here? Right? This user object is holding the power to derive this entire transaction. And what are the small functions this user has? So these functions or these properties. Now this user object will have two types of, what I can say, this will have two things, or you can have, it will have two things. So one would be the state and another would be the properties. So what will be the state? So if I say a state will be something like, say, a user ID, a password, or email. Make sense, guys? Whereas properties would be like, let's say, as login, sign up, and forget password. So whatever. This type of division was available to us long back. So this is on this approach, our languages like C# and Java are working from, I would say, at least 3 decades before, right? Guys, am I correct? So Java, C#. So all these were working on this. It was going fantastic. But when it came to languages like client-side languages, okay, so how many of you understand what is the client-side language? Guys, what is the client-side language? Guys, any one of you? Okay, now, what is a client-side language basically? Okay, so how many of you understand what is a server client? Mike, you're aware about it? What is a server-client relationship? Guys, let's be quick. It's either a yes or a no. Are you aware about what is a server-client relationship? What is a server, what's a client? Now, as soon as I say google.com, what happens? Internally, what is happening? So there's a request going to a server and the server is responding me back with a response. So what is this server-client relationship? This is known as the concept of server-client. Now, on this Google's page, you can find a lot of things which are from the server. Saurabh, I think it's okay. Will it be better if you can type it, or you want to say something? Sorry, can you please check what is the issue with Saurabh? Okay. Now, as soon as I say this thing, like say a server relationship or something of that sense, so a server is being sent a request and the server is responding back. Now, tell me this thing. Okay, I'll give you an example to explain. Over here now, as soon as you hit a request to google.com, what would happen is the Google will come back and will give you a page or the G page or the Google homepage. Now on this homepage, you can do a lot of things. But imagine till now what was happening without these client-side languages or without these server-side languages. What was happening? The entire request or the entire processing was done at the server end. Imagine you go to a login page and you don't give the user ID and password, or you don't mention it. So the server is unavailable. It is even sending a request back to the server, knowing the fact that the ID is not available. So such kind of issues or such kind of problems led us to a new requirement, which was named as client-side scripting. Guys, am I audible? Am I clear? So what is client-side scripting? When on the client, so this is my client, so Google Chrome is my client. So when on the client, I directly validate and check that if the page is having any error or not. or if all the mandatory conditions have been matched before the request is sent back to the server. Guys, I hope I'm making sense till here. So till now, what was happening, this new technology was this client-side language is what is known as JavaScript for the day. So JavaScript was a interpreted language. So what you typed was quickly shown and was quickly available to you to see as an output. So your entire UI or whatever it was all available in the client side. So all manipulation was done in the client side. Guys, I hope I'm making sense to everyone. Perfect. So this concept of client side was taking a boom, because nowadays with people going mobile, with people connecting connecting to the internet, there were so many requests coming on. So what we used to do was we divided the structure into further smaller parts, and I was handling the entire DOM manipulation or my entire HTML design from the client side language. But there came another problem. Another problem was this client-side language, since it was JavaScript and it was very modular, it had the concept of functions, but the concept of object-oriented programming was not available. Correct, guys? Guys, are you all there? So since this concept of object-oriented programming was not available in this JavaScript, so validation for like classes, conversion of JavaScript to JSON was a bit heavy task for me, or as a developer, that was a very demanding role. That is what led to the unique concept known as object-oriented JavaScript. Clear, guys? Guys, are we good till here, till this part? Okay, perfect, guys. Now, since we have understood this concept of object-oriented JavaScript, the starting. So now, unlike my object-oriented programming like Java or like C#, here I had few limitations, or I had to stay within my limits of my limits of being ability to compile the code on the system or on the client. So I had to be memory sensitive. I had to be very much secure, because see, this client side data, I'll give you an example, guys, just a second. I'll go to Google and I'll say inspect. I'll show you some things which will change your perspective of how things work or how JavaScript actually works. So now with this application over here, and so like these are the things which Google is storing for you. This is my local storage. It is as good as your, you can say it's a kind of a JSON type of thing which is available. So this is a key which is being stored over here, and this is all JSON, right? So all these storages are available. So like this is my session details. So what is my session? What is my username? And all of that is stored over here, right? So this is available to the user at any point in time. Considering these facts, so these are my application details, my SSID. My SSID is my network ID, right? And what is my consent? So by consent, I mean what I have accepted. So it means yes, and India and English, GB, Great Britain. So these things I have accepted. These are the terms and conditions. So these all things were available for me, and as a developer, giving the right or storing some sensitive information over here was a very big challenge for me. Considering these things in mind, I had to maintain a proper structure of keeping an object in such a way that it will not be exposed to the user. That is what is the concept of OOjs. Now, so till in my all the object-oriented programmings or in my OOps concept, my focus was on classes and objects. But JavaScript was very unique in itself, and there was already a framework or a very common thing known as JSON. Are you guys aware of what is JSON actually? So what is JSON? So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, correct? So what it means is that my Java is available, so this is my object notation. So how is the object stored in Java? This is how a object is stored in Java. This is a plain JavaScript, okay, like we see over here. This is a JSON. This is a key, this is a value, a key, a value, a key, a value. Now, this is how I am supposed to maintain objects, and that is what needs to be kept in mind when creating objects inside. Okay. That is what we need to keep in mind when creating objects inside my JavaScript. Correct, guys? Can we move ahead? Now, let's take an example that we have a person class and we need to manage the person's logging into our website. So what is a person? So person is all about having a name, age, a gender, and some hobby kind of thing. Now there would be something as we can have a small, let's say, small message, which is like his, like his summary kind of, which would be, hey there, I am, my name, and some text. So this message is something which I need to derive, or which is a function. And then the next part for this one is my, you can say my site login message. So when you log into the site, you see now, so it will be, hi, I am, my name. Now, imagine you are building a platform for students or like for a school, then you are very well aware that these things need to be controlled. Correct, guys? Are you able to follow? So this is my person class, this is my person object. These are the attributes or the state it has, and these are the properties, functions it will have. Now, controlling this thing in mind, we need to implement. Now, imagine a user calls a function like from the person object, it calls the function as message. Whatever is the object, say the person object is like this. So person name is, let's say, Eduonix user, and age is say 18, and let's say gender is say male, and hobbies is like reading. Now, if this user calls this message function, the output of this function will be, hey there, I am Eduonix user. Guys, are you good with this part till now? So this is a function. Now, when a user is calling this particular function and it is receiving this output, there is a concept. This is known as the famous concept of abstraction. What is it known as, guys? Guys, what is this known as? Abstraction. So how abstraction works is like, so whenever we, okay, now, okay, how many of you guys drive car? How many of you drives car? How many of you? Now, when you drive a car, what you know is that you accelerate and the car speeds up. You turn on the indicator, the indicator light turns on. You as a user are unaware of its actual working. When you go to an ATM, you withdraw the cash and you are done. So all these things is known as abstraction. So what is abstraction? When as a user, you are unaware of what are the internal working of that particular functionality is known as abstraction. So this abstraction is all about this thing. Now, then we have a concept of encapsulation. So what is encapsulation? So all these are the terminologies which are specific to, you can say OOPS concept. So these are all aware everywhere. So like this is something which we need to keep in mind if we need to understand, right? So what is encapsulation? When we kind of wrap around things, that is encapsulation, right? So now this functionality is hidden, right? This is not available to the user. So the user says message and he receives this output. But now if I'm designing a system, say for a school management, what will I do is I will have a person class which will have these details because these are ultimately needed. Anyhow, I need these, right? Okay. Now, over here, I have these things available with me. I know that if it's a school management, I would be having something as student and I would be having something as teacher also. Guys, does it make sense? This is the next concept known as inheritance. Correct, guys? Guys, all of you, are you clear with this part now? So this is known as inheritance. So what is inheritance? When we derive the child properties from the parents, right? Like for example, student extends person. So now all the properties which were there in person, these four, these are automatically transferred to the student. So now student. So now if you say over here, or if you type something as, let's name it as something as class or standard, like in which standard the student studies. This standard property is over and above the person, right? Guys, make sense? In a similar way, I have something as teacher. So what is teacher all about? So teacher will now, let's say, the teacher again needs to extend the student class, extend the person class, and it will again have something as, let's try to add something, subjects, because the teacher should teach some subjects, right? Now, these things are an addition to my existing behavior, and this adds to my third feature known as inheritance. Right, guys? Now, moving ahead with this is my next concept, which is known as how do I instantiate the objects or object creation. So how it works is, imagine I have a person class, and if I want to make an object of person class, like say person had 4 properties, right? Over here, like this. Now, when I give this object as say person1, and this age is 1, gender is say male, and the hobby is, let's take it as music. So now this is known as my object, and this is known as object instantiation. Correct, guys? So how we create this object? We create this object with the concept known as constructor. Guys, are we good with this part? Guys, no, yes, no, no. So Saurabh, Professor Mara, Niveen, guys, any doubts you guys have? Any doubts, any questions? In my entire trainings, like people, not coming up with questions. Is it like it is all clear, you are able to follow all, or is it like, you are able to follow nothing and it's going all above the head? I'm trying to keep it simple so that you guys can follow and you can understand the need of object-oriented programming. Okay, no worries, Naveen. If you are having some connection issues, you can try to understand whatever you are, and the team will be sharing you the, the recordings and the training content, so you can re-refer those. And if you have any doubts, you can come back to with your doubts, with your questions overall. So don't worry about that. Now, Perfect. So now moving on from here is my concept of constructor. So what is a constructor? So we understand you can take constructor as a concept where your focus is on object creation. So till now I had a class. So what is a class? A class is a rough outline. A class is a rough outline of the actual map. For example, if you're like say if your house is a map, and then the building in which you are living is the object. So how do we do it? We do it with the concept known as constructor. So how it works? So we have a constructor function. So we have a constructor function which actually runs to create the object, right? And this concept of having a constructor to create an object is known as object instantiation. Correct, guys? Make sense? So we have covered till now the concept of the three main concepts of OOPs. Correct, guys? So another concept is polymorphism. So like we can use polymorphism through functions. That is by default there. So let's not waste time in this right now because it's not of much importance to us. Now we need to understand the work or how actually a thing will or something like say a class, something like that will exist. Correct, guys? Make sense? Okay. So over here, if I go to console and okay, guys, how many of you are aware that you can actually create functions directly in the console itself? Okay, wait, before we move on, how can we execute JavaScript? Or how can we actually use JavaScript, guys? Come on, tell me. Yes, guys. How can we actually create JavaScript? Come on. Be quick. No, Mike, this is not Java. This is, okay, Saurabh, in browser. Can't I create it in something like Notepad? Okay, so what I'll do is, I will quickly try to, create a small thing like this. Okay, I'll try to add it. So how we create a new function, I will say function, I would say create new person. So what this should have? This should have, say, let's take it as a name object. Once we are trying to do, we have to have a constant. So I'm having a constant object. We know that in JavaScript the object is like this. So what properties it needs to have? It needs to have a object and a name. So I name it as the name which is coming from the top. Now let's try to create a function for this. So I had a function as message. You guys remember that? So what this message is all about? This message is a function. And this function is giving me an alert, so nothing like that, a plain alert saying that, hi, I am, and plus obj dot name. Correct, guys? Now, okay, I'll save this, guys, over here in the projects over here. Okay, wait, in the webinar, I'll share it. Okay, just a second, guys. So over here, webinar, and in the test scripts, I create, let's name it as example. This is my HTML, and this HTML needs to have a doc type HTML. It needs to now have a HTML tag intact. then it needs to have a head, and inside the head it needs to have a script, and inside the script this needs to have this particular text. Correct, guys? This is a very common or a very basic example of my function. So I'd say go live, and it would be starting up a server. This is my server. It's not having anything right now, so I say it as index.html. No. It's example.html. Okay. Let me try to add some body also. So I'll say body and my first file. Okay, I would go to my project over here, and from the documents I go to the React webinar test scripts, and over here in the example.html I say open with Google Chrome. This is my first file. If you inspect or if you view the code, this is the code you are getting. Correct, guys? Now, we have created this function. Let's go to inspect. Okay, not here, over here. Let's go to inspect, and let's try to play around with this particular function. So let's name it, let's create a constant Aditya. Since I'm a person, and I would say create new person. So what was the object, so the function was having a name. I name it as Aditya. So it has done something. So I would say Aditya.name. Okay, have I made some mistake, guys? Okay, let me go to my code. This is fine, right? Okay. Create new person, object. Okay, I need to return my object also, so I would say return object. So over here, I need to refresh this page. So now I say, so I'm creating an object, guys. So constant. So I'm typing this thing Aditya, and I say Aditya.name. What I get, guys? I get Aditya. Correct, guys? Now I had a function by the name of message. So I say Aditya dot. So if you see properly, when I was saying that this object has a name and a message. So I say Aditya dot message. As soon as I type this is a function. It is saying, hi, I am Aditya. Correct, guys? Make sense till here now? Everyone, guys, are we all good till here? So I'm trying to go step by step so that you guys understand how it actually works and how you actually should get started with React, right? Now, this particular part of the code was a bit lengthy, and it was, we had to do a lot of things to it. So now, this is like a creation of creation of a new object over here, right? If you see. So just to remove this, we have something given by the name of constructor. What that does is constructor helps me save this effort and will help me create the object directly. Correct, guys? Make sense? Guys, are you all good to hear? Can we move ahead now, guys? Okay. So post this. Now we have we have something very unique, which is a function known as create function. So to do that, what we will do is, okay, I'll cover that later. I'll move ahead with the, so guys, I think we all are good with the concept of object oriented JavaScript, right? So what we will do is, once we cover TypeScript, we will be creating classes in that. So that will give us further understanding of the inheritance concept. But right now we have understood how it works, right? So let's move back to TypeScript and let's try to continue with TypeScript to understand how it works. And based on that, we'll be creating the objects and creating the classes from the TypeScript directly. Make sense, guys? Yeah, sure. Guys, let's have a minute of break. I'll just fetch some water and then we'll continue. Just give me a minute. Okay. So thanks guys for waiting. We will continue now. So all of you are here. So moving on further is a very interesting concept or a very interesting language. That language is named as TypeScript. So till now, JavaScript was going really good. Trust me on that. But JavaScript had some issues. Those issues were in terms of availability and in terms of typecasting. So JavaScript was not strongly typed. That gave us a big issue when we were trying to create or trying to work on objects. Those used to give us a lot of errors, which could not be in turn returning us the proper objects. To solve this problem, Microsoft came up with a language known as TypeScript. So what is TypeScript? It's TypeScript is JavaScript for application scale development. Now, what it means is it is strongly typed. So what I mean by strongly typed is, understand like this. In JavaScript, if I had to take a variable, like if it was supposed to be a string, I could have taken it as a string and could have used it anywhere, right? Now I could have changed it. I could have put into some arbitrary values also, like say an integer, and it would not have been given me an error at the time of compilation, which could have broke the code when it was running on the server or on the production. Such kind of issues were very common in JavaScript, which led to a new requirement named as strongly typed or a type-specific language, which is why TypeScript was there. We already discussed the object-oriented capabilities, and since JavaScript is kind of interpreted, so this TypeScript is compiled. So we have a TS file, which is then put into which once compiled gives me a .js file. Guys, are we good till this part? So Andreas Hirschberg designed TypeScript while he was working at Microsoft. So TypeScript was developed at Microsoft, and it is majorly used in Angular in the latest release of Angular by Google. So TypeScript is a kind of a superset of JavaScript. So whatever is there in JS put together with some capabilities is available in TypeScript. Now, so yes, so putting it in simple words, TypeScript is nothing but JS with some additional features. Moving on further is so what is TypeScript? It's a language as well as some tools. So like since it is with Java, it's a kind of superset of JS, so it's a language. And since it is having some additional features, that is why it is more of having more tools which make it easier for the developer to use or for a developer to understand. Guys, are you good with this part? So now what we'll be covering in TS is available. So we'll be getting an introduction, the installation part, the variables, the data types, functions, interfaces, classes, and access modifiers. So these three topics comes as a part of our object-oriented JavaScript, and these forms the basics of TypeScript, which was promised in the session today. So welcoming you back again and continuing from where we were, the features of TypeScript. So TypeScript is just like JavaScript. It supports all other JS libraries. So if you wish to use jQuery in your TypeScript, you can use it. So the flexibility which was available in JavaScript is still there, and it is reducing us the errors which were present a lot in our JavaScript. Correct, guys? Are you good till this part? Moving on further is our concepts. It's portable. So what it means is portable is it can work on any platform. Like since it's the Microsoft, it doesn't mean it is specific to IE or it will work only on the Edge kit or on the IE kit. It is compatible to work on the Chrome kit. And since we are all aware that Microsoft has also adopted Chrome kit in its Edge browsers, so this will work with any browser you wish to use and will be compiled in the same manner irrespective of the language. That gives me more power to use. So, now, when to use TypeScript and when to use JavaScript. So, compilation. I just told that, JavaScript was an interpreted language. So whatever you typed was quickly run on the machines. So there was nothing as error coming in. So all of that would, were available on the production or on the runtime itself. Guys, I hope I'm making sense. All these things put together were making it very difficult for a developer to debug the issue, right? And with the powers like minification of JS and all of that, it was really difficult for a developer to understand, what could be a case or how should a developer actually work on it. So such things TypeScript removed. How? TypeScript is a transpiler, is a compiled language. So what it does is TypeScript gives me a transpiler. So what is a transpiler? So I have a TSC command, which once execute gives me the JS file, which will be interpreted on the server. So once I'm running a TSC or once I'm running a TSC file, it will first convert to JS, which will then be interpreted on the browser. So all my compile time errors, my static binding and all of that is checked beforehand or before it goes for the JS path. Very similar to my languages like Java and my .NET. Guys, I hope I'm making sense. All of us are clear? Professor Mara, Saurabh, Mike, and Sushant, right? Perfect, thanks. Now, what next? So I already told you about the static typing. So what is static typing? So like if I have an object, so until now in JS, it was all about having a var. So var could be anything. It could be a string, it could be a number, these could be type changed, typecasted. So all of that was optional in nature. Oh, sorry, was not at all required. But those were giving a lot of errors. That gave me the next feature of TypeScript, which is strong static typing. What it means, so if you are taking a number and if you define it as a number, it will check that it will always be a number. If in case you don't process it in that way, it would give you a compilation error, saving you effort and time when you are trying to work on it, right? Moving on is my feature. So what next? So any extension you want, or like if you want to have external libraries, you can directly use it by using this extension, and even in your own code, you can include other libraries. Libraries could be any JS library available anywhere in the world. That is giving it even further more power to give or to possess as a very strong language or as a language of the future. Now, the last but not the least would be my TS plus OOps. So TypeScript uses the concept of object-oriented programming and is an object-oriented JavaScript. So classes, inheritance, and interfaces, all these are available. So that provides me the reusability and the modularity kind of concept, which helps us to make our code even more modular. Now, moving on are my components. So what a TypeScript has? It has a language, a compiler, and a TSL or the TypeScript language service. So what is language? The syntax, the keywords, the annotations. So compiler is a TSC. So like in Java, we have Java C. In .NET, we have something as C#. Here we have TSC. What is TSC? TSC is a transpiler which converts or which compiles the instructions or code written in the TS file into a JS file, which is then given to the browser to process. Guys, are we good to this part? Now, so transcript language. So, okay, how many of you are feeling sleepy, just by going theory and theory? Because as soon as we finish the TS introduction and we move on to data types, we'll be seeing a lot of theory, a lot of practical examples. So don't worry about that. Okay, so now, it's a kind of a language service. So what it does is it has a compiler. So the concept is, to give it a code formatting and a proper optimization, we have a Typescript language service. So how we install it, guys? We install it by running the command npm install gtypescript. So this npm is a node package manager. How many of you are aware about this, or anyone is having any doubts in this particular command? As a mandate, you need to understand, or you need to have npm already pre-installed in order to run this command. Does it make sense? Are you good with this part? Okay. Guys, are all of you good, right? Which one? Are you talking about the installation part? So Mike, how it works is, to install TypeScript, you need to have npm or node. npm is node package manager. So once you install npm, you simply say npm install TypeScript. So this is just a command. So this is a node package manager. If you don't have npm, I'll show you how you get it. So you say npm. So it's a node package manager. Okay. npm package manager. This is my. So you just need to get started from here, and you need to download this. And once you have it, so everything which is there in npm will be available for you, or you can simply get started from it. I'll share the link, guys. Just give me some time. I'm not able to find exactly where it is. I'll share the link towards the end of the session, or if it's not available, I'll give it to you in the PPT. So this is there. This is needed if in case you guys don't have npm installed. So once you have npm, so like right now I need TypeScript. Search. This is my TypeScript. So how do I install it? I say npm install. So all this is easily available. So I just need to say this install. So, and this is, once it's installed, I can use it. So, but the only mandate is the requirement to have an npm available. I hope I have made sense, Mike, right? Now this is telling us the size is 54 MBs and it has a total of 171 files. So once you install this, then you can move ahead with using it. Okay. Moving back to over here. Now, once you get the npm up and running, you can actually get started by the use of, So once you have this, so what are the compilation steps? Any file saved in npm in TypeScript is a TS file. So if it's a file.ts, and if you say tsc file.ts, you get the JS file, which is then run on the browser. So what I'll do is I'll take you to, now what we'll be doing is, guys, we'll be going to the playground, and this is the URL of the playground. Right now we'll be doing it directly in the playground, and over here we'll be using it. So TypeScript has given us a very good playground to execute. Now this is my TS file. So over here I say constant message string. This is a string message, hello world. I'll rename it. I'll try to update. So I say constant. So what is constant? We'll be discussing that. Don't worry. I say message. Okay, I'll try to keep it similar. So this defines the type which I am trying to make. I make it as a type string, and I give it as hello world from Eduonix. Right, guys? So since this message is already there, I remove this and I run this. As soon as I run this, I would I would need to go to my console and I would say inspect. If you go to console, it says hello world from Eduonix. So this is a very first or a very common example which we do. So I'll try to keep this as well running. Okay. So we'll keep all these three live so as to to run it a bit faster. Now, the moving on to the next part is my declaration or my types. So now in my JavaScript, I was having something as var. So what is a var? Var is a variable. Like say over here, if I say var a equal to 10. This is not giving me any error where it was asking like this, right? So if I say over here constant a, so if I run this, I get the output as 10. So what it means to me is that this particular part of the code ran. This var was running very good for me in the form of JavaScript or till JavaScript, but with the concept of static binding, it was giving me error. That is what led to the next concept in JavaScript, or in my next feature, or in my ES 2015 standard, is the use of let. So what let does is let kind of binds it. So we'll be studying let. So these are the three types of declaration I can use in JavaScript or in TypeScript: let, constant, and var. These are similar to JS. So if you already know their meaning in JS, you are already good to go. You don't need to refer these. So var. Simple and the most used. So you can even have a function like this. Okay. So like now if I have a var10 and if I have a function like this, so now this function this var is available and can be used anywhere. I'll give you an example, guys. Now over here, if I write a function like say hello world, correct guys? Now what will happen, guys? What next I need to do is I simply need to say a equal to a plus plus, or let's simply say a plus plus, right? And I say console a, and post this I called my hello world function. I run this, I get 11. So even this variable was defined outside my scope of the function. I can use it anywhere, right? Such kind of errors were very, very, very common. And because of these, or like because of these bindings, because unlike my Java code, so like in Java, how it works is the object can be used in a class. Now this a variable can be used anywhere in the JavaScript. Like right now, if you say a, you can get the value. So a is already present, the variable is already there. Such kind of things were very difficult to process, which gave me the requirement or the need to move on to the new type of data, which was a. Okay, I'll use this function. Okay. Now what I'm doing is, guys, I'm having a function fun, and this function is returning something, and okay, this is, and I don't need this, and this is already a, and this is a, and this is a. So very similar to what was happening. So I already have it. So this is saying that it should be a plus plus. I'll do it, and I run this. Sorry. Why I didn't run? What is happening here? It's not running. Just a few minutes. Okay, it's giving me an alert, and this is returning. Okay, I'll look into this later part. But I hope you're trying to follow the problem. So like if I had some deep function inside this, that won't work, and that would give me an error whenever I'm running the code. To remove this issue, I moved up with the concept of next type, which is known as the let keyword, right? So we will move on to the let type. So what is let? Let is now, it was introduced in JS in the next new version of 2.15, and it's more safer. Why? Because now this will be, so the error which I showed you of block scoping will not come in let. So let us try to use let and try to see it how it works. Over here I say let num is equal to 10 and let sum is equal to, so what is sum? Sum is equal to num into 2. I say alert sum. If I run this, so I get the sum. So now this let is more safer and will be more better to use when we are trying to use it as an object. Right, guys? Guys, can we move ahead? Any questions in this part till now? Everyone, guys. Guys, can we move ahead now? Now. So moving on, so this is my let, and the let is very useful. And the last thing is my constant. So what is constant? Like over here now, if I try to change the message, so I say message is equal to, message is equal to Aditya. This is giving me an error saying that cannot assign message because it is a constant. So the word or the declaration is very clear that constants need to be constants and these can't be reassigned. Correct, guys? Make sense? So because now why this could happen, because see, so once it was, since this was giving me an error and so it is not compiling. So because of that, I can understand where I'm doing wrong and what I need to improve in order to make my application safe or to make it type safe, right? Guys, are we good with this part? Can we move on to the different type of data types available in this one? Guys, can we move on to the different type of data types available in the library of TypeScript? Can we move ahead, guys? What say? Sure. I'll remove this particular part because we're not studying constant right now. Let us try to see a very basic example of a Boolean type. So what's a Boolean, guys? Something which is of type basic or the basic single type, right? So I say let, assuming I'm referring to you guys, beginner. So if beginner is of type Boolean. So what Boolean means? It will either have true or false, right? Now let us try to console it on the log, and what I console log is beginner. So I get it as true, correct, guys? Now you guys are free to use your own logic. So this, like say beginner, and if it's having something, you can console log something, and we will console log as say welcome to the world of TypeScript. Welcome to the world of TypeScript. Otherwise, we would say else. I would say else. Now, what happens in else? So I'm trying to push up mix up the two concepts so that we can learn faster in this given hour of 2 hours, sorry. And I would say welcome back, techie. Let's take the journey ahead. Correct. Now let's try to run this. So if it's true, it is giving me an output, welcome to the world of TypeScript. And if I make it as not, and if I run it, it says welcome back, techie. Let's take the journey ahead. Guys, I hope it's interesting. They're going good, right? I hope all of you are very much fine with the speed, the pace. Thanks, Mike. Now, so the very basic thing now. So this is my Boolean type. Guys, you will try to cover all the types at one go, and then you will jump back to the PPT to understand what we have, like what we have covered and what can be done, right? Or if something remains. Next is let's say num. So we already had num, right? Okay, so we will continue with that. So the num, I now define it to the type number. So I say number is 10, and I don't say alert, I say console. So what it has happened for, so it has got me the output. Now, so till now, like if you guys are aware about other languages, how it was working in other languages was, here, the numbers used to be either a type. Yes, Mike, you can go on with your question. Till now, what it was happening was the types were strongly typecasted. By that I mean, so I had something as integer, something as float, something as unsigned, and something as so all of this, right? Mike, you ask a question, don't worry, I answer them whenever it's possible. Now, so the beauty of Typescript is that number holds all the things. If I make it as 10.10, it will give me output of whatever it is. So so now imagine if tomorrow you want to divide it, say by 0. It won't give you an error because it has already got those capabilities in place to handle such situations. Initially, if you were to divide something by a number, you would have been able to do it. So all of this is available. Because of that, I am able to take my programming to the next level without having to worry about the different type of types. So this is easier than my traditional object-oriented programming because it is trying to bind all the numbers into one, and it's it's safer than my JS where I could get errors and was not able to solve. Right? Yes, Mike, your question, please. I'm not sure if I would. Okay, so if you want to ask it on unmute, so let park your question for the towards the end of the session. We would be sparing some 15 to 20 minutes of time just for the quick Q&A. So don't worry about that. Let's take these questions there. Okay, so moving on. So I've got the numbers. I've got this. Now the next is my strings. So what are strings? So strings are the most important part of any language because, okay, now so see the beauty of my compilation. This extra space is removed. Extra space removed. All these things make my code less bulky. So in JS, whatever was the problem is actually handled over here. Correct, guys? Now, so what I do is I take a string. So what are strings, guys? So I already had taken a string. Now I take it as a name. So I say let name string is equal to, I would take it as Eduonix. This Eduonix string is my string. Okay, have I taken name somewhere, guys? Name was already declared here. Okay, I would take it as uname, right? So I've already got the username. Now I would just simply say console.log uname. So the concept is still the same. I would be now, okay, sorry. here. So if this is the Eduonix, it is coming properly. So strings are not something which need much of explanation. They're always there, but it is the templating which is of use to me. Now, okay, before we move that, we can use any type of strings, either this or the single quotes. Example. So I taken it like this, and I'll copy this one, and I would say let u password is equal to Eduonix. I would simply say it. Now I'm taking it inside a single quote, and I paste it over here, and I say u pass over here, run. I've got it. So this will also work. Now imagine I have a sentence, or if I have a lengthy text to be printed, like say, I would say let message. So I add something as message. Okay, message is already there. Okay, I would say greeting message then, G message. G message is equal to, I would say, a and dollar. So this is how I print my variables or my objects inside the string. And your password is $upass. Correct, guys? Now let's try to console it on the, let's try to console it. And over here, I say G message. Okay. Why? What happened? Okay. So it is not taking the output. It is not taking the output because it is a normal string. To do it, string gives us a kind of a templating engine, or the Typescript gives a templating engine. This is that engine which will help me now execute. Guys, you got the output? So without having to rewrite the entire thing, or without having to, amend it. Otherwise, how would I have done it? I'll show it to you. So how would we have done it otherwise is, let's take it as, let's say G1 message. So how we would have done it, double this one, plus and this goes like this, plus double this one. So all this lengthy task which was needed is now gone. Okay, and this is, okay, now. So the lengthy code which was there is now easier to execute. Guys, I hope I'm making sense to all of you. So the output is same, but see the complexity it is adding. Even one wrong closure would give me an error on the compilation and would render my code unutilized. That is the power of templating which is there in TypeScript. Correct, guys? Are we good till this part? Guys, are we good with this part till now? So now we have got this. Now, since we are already clear with this, guys, can we move ahead now? So now we will move ahead to the next type. So now, for the people who still love JavaScript, TypeScript is not going to disappoint you by by typing all these things so tightly. Let's take it as some value. Now, in cases when you are unaware of what your value should be or what your value could be, what you can take it, you can define it of type any. So you say any is equal to 10. So what is it doing is, it is giving you an output of some value as, Okay. So you run it, some value is 10. Now, if tomorrow going forward, you want to give some value is equal to ABC, it is still not giving me an error because the system has understood that this is ABC and this can work. So it has everything for everyone, unlike JavaScript Visual Studio. So if you want to give it for all the things like, say, when your text is not defined, you're calling an API, a user input, you are not aware what it possibly could be. It's good to have any and to move away rather than to have all those things typed so tightly to give you an error in the runtime. So moving on from there is my next type, or is my next level of knowledge, or my next area of application, which is, so these are basics type, right? Now the basics are good, but what about when we have multiple objects or multiple type of data to store? That is which takes us to the concept of arrays. Guys, I'm sharing you this particular part of the code. Can you guys try to open it? Are you able to open it, guys? Okay. Because I think this should work, yeah. So now till here we were working on only objects. So now how arrays work, let's see that. So I say let list. So I take a list is of, so the list is of number. This is of number. And to define it, a very simple thing, and over here 1, 2, 3. Right, guys? So now it is running properly. So how we print it, that is one way of defining a list. Another way is list2. How you define list2 is you take it of an array. So what's the type of array? Sorry, guys. So you take it of type array, and array is something like this. Array number, and this is number, and over here. Correct, guys? It's all running as of now. It will not give me an error. So how do we actually print it is something which we need to see, or which we need to understand. Correct, guys? So for this, we have a concept of iterators. So what are iterators? So when we are trying to iterate over different objects, or when we are trying to iterate over different values, we need iterators. So iterators are more or less like loops which help you traverse over what you're, okay. So what you're asking, Mara? Your question is not clear, Professor Mara. Now, so this list is there now. So when imagine till now to console this, I was simply saying this console. I'll give you an example. So if I say console.log, I say list and I print it. Right? So it is giving me that there are 3 objects. These are this and the length object. Now, if you say length, okay, this link is for the code. So whatever code we are doing right now, towards the end, I'll share you this link so that you guys can directly open it and copy it in your own machine to try it post the session if you want. Once you run it, so now it is giving me that the length is 3. So the length I have got, I have understood of, how should we use it. But what about cases when I am not very much willing to? So just now, okay, if I want to get a particular iteration or a particular object, I can simply say list of whatever is the object. Let's say 1. So what will this give me, guys? What will output of list 1? Will it be 1 or will it be 2? Guys, I'm printing console.log list 1. What will be the output? Okay, that's fine. Yes, that's good. Let's try to run this and see what is the output. I would say plus list. This is giving me 2. Now, but what about if I want to traverse over the whole list? So I say for. So when I say for, so for is having a concept, or there are 2 types of for loop available in my programming. So there, one is known as a for of. Now, one is known as force of, and how force of works is it is for loop, and I say let some variable. This is a number. I say n of list. And over here, I say console.log n. And over over here, I copy this. I'm saying for loop, for of. Okay. So I've got this one up and running, and I end this particular part of the code. For of end. I've got 1, 2, 3. So this is the easiest part. So if you want to print all of them, you can simply do it using the for of loop. Now there is another loop which is known as the for in loop. I would copy this one and I would say for in. Since all these, okay, guys, I hope all of you are aware about loops, right? I don't need to explain what are loops, right? And this is in. So how these two differ is that the in will give me the index or the key, whereas the for of gives me the value. Correct, guys? Guys, are we good to this part, everyone? Anyone having any doubts? So Mike, what we will be doing is, don't worry, I'll give you an example. Okay, guys, so what Mike is asking is that how do we get the syntax? And that does make a valid question. So I'm just jumping back to the PPT for 2 minutes. So Mike, how we have done is in the PPT, we have taken the example of everything. Like this is a Boolean. This is something like this. Then the next one is number. So like how you declare a number. These are all the literals which are available, right? So these are all available in the PPT, and the PPT will be shared to you on your email ID on which you got the invite. So the team would be sharing it with you post the session like in a day or 2, and you can refer these to get an understanding of the concept or get an understanding of all the different types. Is that fine, Mike? So we have got for of, we have got for in, and next thing is my understanding of tuples. So I've got arrays, and the next one is tuples. So guys, what are tuples? Tuples are something, okay, let's say a student. So what a student will have? Imagine I say that student will have something string and some number. That means, so the string is my ID. I take the string as Eduonix. I was assuming error. Property one, but is required in type. Okay, I'm just clearing it. Give me a second, boss. Okay, perfect. I give it as Eduonix, and the number which I do is 1. Right. Now I have got this tuple up and running. If I run this, it will not give me an error. And if I, on the console log, if I log it as student, I would say it as student is plus. I don't need this, okay, I would say plus. Whatever was there in the object is printed. So when you are unaware of the exact type or when you want the data to be of different type, then you can use the concept of tuples. Correct, guys? Now, moving on to the next is, let's take an example of enum. So what are enums? So enums are something, which hold some value, like say enum of states, enum of status. So let's take an enum of status. So what I take is an enum of status. This enum is having three things: new, open, and closed. To have an object, what I do is I would say let S is of, I take status is equal to status dot. So I say new. So now what will happen is the value assigned to S is a enum type. What it means, see over here. So now it is trying to work in a similar way as this. So now initially it is showing you as 0, but to the user this would be shown as new. What it means is that as a user you are tightly binding it. So the status can now hold no other value. If you want to add it, you would need to add it to the enum, then you can use it. That is how all your hard-coded values like say states, countries, all these are mapped in the form of enums. Correct, guys? Can we move ahead, guys? Okay, now, okay, for the string, we have something as functions also. So I would say to, not this one. Like imagine if this is a function and you want to convert it to uppercase. So you can say to uppercase. If you do it like this, now whatever the output you would get would be all in the uppercase. These are all the functions available of all these strings. So these are like the functions which will help us to execute. Correct, guys? Guys, I hope I'm making sense to all of you, right? And you are able to follow, right, everyone? So bold is something different. We don't have a function for bold. We have a function for uppercase, lowercase, and also to local uppercase, and to lower, to upper. Something with bold is not there. So bold is a style mic, and upper and lower are functionalities. Why we have upper? Because generally how it works, all the usernames are always converted to lowercase and are then saved or checked for validation. So these functionalities are for all those cases. Now, let us try to move on for even a bit further to the concept of functions. So like right now, what is this happening is, this was a very plain function and it was not giving back or returning me anything. To have a function which gives me an object, I would say function. Like let's take a function as add function, okay? And the add function has a num1, which is a number, a num2, which is again a number. Okay. I say that this function is supposed to return a number. I say number and I give the coding. It's giving me an error because the return is not there, or it should return me some value. So now over here I say return. What I return is num1 plus, right guys? So I say over here, I say add, I'll say in the console log, I'll say console.log, I would say add. So what I add is add 1, 2. So it will give me an output. Let's see what is the output. So I got the output as 3. Now, if you want that the function is not executed, or whatever is the function, if you want it to have some default value, like let's say 10, and then what you can do is, even if you don't pass a value, it will run because it is expected to have certain values. So this is like if you do it now 5, the output will be 15 because the system has given it a default value. Correct, guys? Make sense? Okay, moving on further is my okay. So guys, first let's move back to the PPT. Let's see whatever we have covered, and then there are a few concepts remaining further from the interfaces and classes concept. Then we'll moving on to those concepts. Guys, I hope you all are enjoying and you all have understood what is being taught, right? Like, let's take a minute of break and then we'll be continuing with it, right? Is it fine, everyone? Okay, guys, so can we guys move ahead? Are you all there? Guys, can we move ahead now? So we have got a Boolean type, a true, false. We have already discussed this. Next is a string, a number. So what's a number? Number is something which can store a number. Now, this is something concept as literals. So what are literals? When we want to store a number, to define it like that the number is a hexadecimal number or a number is a kind of a, octal number, then we have a concept of literals like this one. So this means that it's a hexadecimal number. This is a binary number. This is a octal number. So this will then will be saved as an octal number, right? So moving on, string, we already discussed string, I think. So like this one, this is a kind of a templating thing which we discussed all this already, right? So this is a username, a login attempt, and this is coming up like this. Now this template can be even multi-line also. I'll be showing it to you how. So like over here now, this since it's a template, you can have it in multi-lines. And to do it using plus, you will need to do it like this. Correct, guys? So next are arrays. So arrays are something which store the same type. So there are two types of doing it, using a number and using a generic way or using the data type. So moving on is my iterator. So we have two types. So when you do iteration, so we can say that the object is iterable if it has a implementation of symbol.iterable. So what are iterables or what types can be iterated are arrays, map, set, string, and int32 array and unit uint32 array. So we have already seen an example of for of. So what is for of? So like this is a tuple, right? I hope you guys understand this. So it's a kind of a list for array of different types, not a homogeneous one. So if I say for of, then it will be giving me the values. And if I say, okay, before we move on to foreign, I'm just explaining you the working of for of. So if you have written a for of like this, the compiled code gives me a code like this, so which is a variable, a typical type of structure for three things, which is the first one is my initialization, my condition, and my incrementation. So whatever is initialized is set, and I try to put it, and whatever is the command, I execute it, and I move ahead till the length is matched. I hope all of you are aware about the working of for loops, right? Guys, make sense, right? When you want to iterate over a keys, then we use the foreign, right? So foreign will give you a list of keys rather than the object. So if you say in, you get the output as 0, 1, 2, not as 1, Eduonix, and true. So that was something as, you can say something of understanding of different types. Now the next is exception handling. So exception handling is also used to maintain the scope. So like now, if I say try through, and if I try to catch an exception, now if I try to print this exception outside this catch, will I be able to do it, guys? So I'll repeat my question. My question is, this is my try and catch. I'm trying to throw some exception and I'm trying to catch it over here. Now this E object or this E exception which I've got, can I print it outside the catch block? Guys, is my question clear? So if I do console.log E, I won't be getting the output because E will not be existing over here. So what I'll do is I'll try to copy this particular part of the code and quickly print it over here. And you see that the error is already coming in because E is not existing, right? If you do it like this, this part of the code will run properly and it is saying that the exception is caught. So if you say something as you say plus E, this will work because it is inside the scope, right? This is my exception thrown. This is what was the exception. Guys, I hope I'm making sense and you all are able to follow, right? Okay. So moving on from the exception is the concept of tuple. So when you are not aware about the type, so you can have something as a number, a string, or any combination for that, we do it using the tuples, right? So if you try to reverse the object or the sequence, you will get an error. Just make a note of that. Now, Enum we have already discussed, like so something like very similar to C#, like say I have a color of red, green, and blue, and I try to print it, so something like that. So I try to get simple. Now, if you take it as if you want to print the color name, like we did it, right? Okay, I'll try to do it like this now. So over here, when we were over here trying to print the status. Now, if you make it as if you say status name and if you give it as a string, so what you need to pass is you need to pass the type. So you do it like this. Okay. So string of S. So and if you say plus, you give a blank space over here and you say this name. If you run it, you get the status. Yes, I hope I'm making sense. I'm trying to rush it a bit faster because we have a lot to cover. We have discussed any APIs, user input. We have already done this, and void. So if we are not returning anything like the hello world function, then it's a simple void. So just like it is supposed to be the function if you are not returning any value. And like this is a warn user, something of that sort, very plain warnings, right? Now, what is object? So when you are something which is non-primitive in nature, a user, a variable, a user, a class, a vehicle, a car. All of these are defined in the form of objects. Correct, guys? So how you do it? So you say declare function and you say object. So you have got a new object being created, correct? And when you say create props O0, so it means that the object O is created, or the object is created prop, and then it is having a 0 value, right? So you can create an object of null also, but you can't create an object of 42 because this is a number and it is supposed to pass as an object. So by object, it means it is supposed to be a JSON object. So it is supposed to be in the form of a JSON. Okay. So this won't work. Object is supposed to be something not non-linear or something non-basic type, right? So guys, can we move ahead with the concept of interfaces? Everyone, guys. I hope all of you are able to follow, right? Guys, we just have 20 minutes to go now. So first we'll quickly move on to the concept of interfaces. So what are interfaces basically? Guys, what are interfaces, anyone? So I will say interfaces. Imagine I create an interface. So we were having an example as person, right? So we'll continue with the person without having to rework on it. So I say a person interface. What is this person interface supposed to do? This interface will have a first name, type string. Correct? If you want to have a function, okay, we'll also have something as last name. Now, let us say full name. So what will the full name have? Full name will have a person, PER, which will be of the type person. So you got the difference in the difference in now. So I would say console.log. Now over here I say PER dot first name plus or empty space and plus PER dot last name. Correct, guys? Now, how we work on it is very simple. I say let P, I create a person and I say the first name. So what is first name? And I say, now I will say full. So I would say full name, and in the full name I pass the P. So it is what it is saying. It is saying that this can't be assigned because the property last name is missing, right? So what I need to do is either I need to provide it a last name also. So I say last name is equal to user. So now it should run fine and it should print it on the console. So Eduonix user. But there are many, like say if it was Aditya and if it was Ua. But there are many people who don't have a first name, or sorry, who don't have a last name. Then we have something as optional binding. By doing this, I say that this particular object is optional in nature, which means that if it is not there, your program should not stop. So I say run. It is running properly because even it's not defined, that is fine. That is known as optional. I created an interface person. So now this interface is having a person and a first name and a last name. Now I'm having a function in which I'm passing the interface and I'm just trying to print the full name of the user. Correct, guys? Now while working over this, so this is giving me an error because the last name is not there, but it is supposed to be here, right? So being a good developer or having all the use case or having got this use case, I do this and I run this. This is working fine because the user has a name. What about cases? Because since I know that last name may or may not be available for a user. So what I can do is I can remove this last name. To do that, I would have to make it as optional by doing this particular thing. This is known as an optional operator. So by making it optional, even if I run, the system will not give me an error because it has understood that the string is optional in nature. Is it fine, Mara? I'm sorry if I'm misspelling your name, please. Now, moving post this is my next thing, which is, so this was my interfaces. Now, next thing is the very common thing which is a class. So I say class. Let's take a class as employee. So what is an employee? Employee is supposed to have a employee name. The employee name is of type string. Now, how we do it or what we do is, it is saying that it is not having initialize or there is no constructor. Okay. So what I'll do is I would say constructor. So in the constructor, I take the parameter as name, and this is of my type string. And over here, I say this dot employee name is equal to name. So now I have made it as a mandate that everyone calling this one would be passing an employee name. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So now this is assigned. So what I say is I would define a function. Let's name it as the welcome function. So welcome. So I told that the classes can hold both the things, right? So this is my welcome function, and I say console.log. So what I say, hi employee name. Now I have got the thing up and running, and now, so what I'll do is, let us try to create the objects. Let I say EMP. So EMP is an employee is equal to new employee. So how this new employee is created, and I name it as, let's name it as Eduonix. Right? Now, once I do it, I would say console.log. Once I console.log it, what I will log, I would say emp.welcome. So what will happen? It will give me the welcome message. I run this part of the code and I get hi Eduonix. Now the employee could have a, so moving on and extending my things further, but why I'm doing it like this? Sorry, let's do it like this. So this is already having a console log. There's no purpose of having two console logs here. So this is my Eduonix, and if I say emp, so function, so class is, class can be extended, class can be inherited. Class is a very wide concept, and it has the concept of exceptions. So once we were discussing the starting, we were already like say, imagine you are designing a login system, right? So if you have the function approach, so you log in, sign up, these are your main functions, and this is your main approach. Whereas in the object-oriented programming, the focus is on the class. So right now my focus will be on the user ID, the password, and the email. And the property of the functions which I'll have are login, sign up, and forget password. So once the user is available, so the state is maintained, and I need to pass this between the properties to allow the user to log in. Is that fine, Mara? Now, I say employee.welcome. Now imagine, imagine I make a class. Now I know that a class can, so the employee needs to have a manager. So I say manager extends employee. So this is a constructor, and over here is my m name. This is equal, this is a type string, and over here I say, so now I know that once an employee is created, so now I know that I need to call it to the super thing, because my super was also having a name thing. Ultimately, a manager is also an employee, right? Somewhere down the line, right? So I say super and I pass m name, right? And I give a function that, so what the project manager works on, project. So I say, in the project, I say console log managing the over here. So now if I try to, so let's try to take an example, and let's say manager is equal to new manager. So from your group only I'll take a manager. So let's take it as Sushant. If Sushant is a manager and if he is managing the task, so I'm creating an object and I'm trying to create a, so as soon as I'm doing this, employee is created, and I would say man dot project. I say that this is a employee, right? So ultimately, whatever was, so the employee name property was available in the employee is now also available in the manager. Now, if you want to have something as, let's say, as project name, so you can give it over here, project name of type string, correct? Now you need to have it defined over here and give it like, so project name is string. Then what you would do, you would say this would go to super, and would this dot project name is equal to project name. And so now over here you would say, let's take it as webinar. OOjs webinar. And we improve this particular part of the code and say employee this plus space plus managers plus this dot project. If we run this, and the output is, so the employee Sushant manages the OOjs webinar. So this is the concept of inheritance. Now, the function which was welcome, I think, right? So welcome is also still there in the manager. So if I say it like this, I can still use, so it says, hi Sushant. Guys, any questions in this part now? Everyone, guys, are we all good till here? That's very, very strange. You guys are not asking any questions. Okay, so I'll quickly move back to PPTs and will not take much time. And okay, so interfaces we have discussed. So structural typing and flexibility of code. So yes, so interfaces also have read-only properties and optional properties. So this is an example of interface, and this is, I think we already did this example, right? So we don't need to worry about it. So if you want to implement an interface, you can, so like this is an example. So if in the class you want, so this is an interface, you want to give it in a class. So a class can either extend a class, or it can either implement an interface. Correct, guys? That is another example. So now so we have already seen the extending thing. So the implementation is as similar to as extension. Over here, optional properties, we have already told that, like optional properties are something which may or may not be needed. Like we did the last name as optional. So multiple inheritance. So like we have a shape and we have shape square. So yes. So like right now this interface. So the first thing was interfacing coming to a class, but here we have an interface and another interface. So the interface is extending an interface. What it means that if you have a class which is extending the square, it needs to have the side length as well as color as well. Make sense, guys? So class, the most important concept of object-oriented JS, binding of the data and the state together. So what how it helps is because it helps me to modularize my code and reuse the code to a large extent. Correct, guys? So now there are 4 types of access specifiers in a class. The first one is a public access specifier. The second one is a private, and the third one is a protected specifier. Right? So since it's an introduction, we're not covering these in detail. And so this is an example of class. We've already done a class, so I think we are good with this part. And the inheritance we already covered. So when we have 2 types coming in from one, extending one from another is known as inheritance. So this is a classical example of inheritance, a manager. Now, if you want, you can even further extend it by, say, making it as a temporary employee. Because a temporary employee is also an employee, a contractor kind of thing, right? Right. This can also work. So that is the first. So one class can have multiple subclasses, and post that are some do's and don'ts. So it is always advisable to use. Okay, I'll show you this thing. So you guys remember that some here I was using string and this was a capital string. So what are the difference between these two? So this string is an interface and that small string is a data type. So it's always advised to use the data types. Then the next thing is, you are always advised to maintain or use generics. You are advised to avoid the function overloads and the use of optional parameters. So like you saw, making it as question mark and all of that, those should not be to an extent that you are not able to differentiate between your own code. So these are a few do's and don'ts which I recommend as a developer. And
thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, do give us a thumbs up and share it. Also check out amazing discounts and offers on our premium courses in the description below.